Okay. All right. Well, class, this is Joe Lepper. Joe, would you like us to call you Mr. Lepper or Joe today?
No, I don't teach high school anymore. You can just call me Joe.
All right. So that's maybe a good starting point for us today. What I'd like to do is have you answer some questions about your background, talk about who you are. I have a list of questions. Did you have a chance to take a look at that?
Yeah, I read them over.
Okay, great. So I guess what we'll do is start from the top and just ask who you are and where you work.
Okay, my name is Joe Lepper. I work at a company in Portland, Oregon called New Relic. I'm a software engineer here, and what New Relic does is we build a product that other web developers and software engineers use to tell how highly performing their application is, which sounds like really super boring, but I find it fascinating. It's really technical and challenging. And the reason that's important is looking at the questions you asked, there's a lot of questions about like coding, which is really sort of half of the job if you have a sort of software company. Writing the code is actually kind of easy compared to making sure that the code works well, and that it doesn't fall over when it's in production, when it's under load by thousands, potentially millions of people using your software. So we make something that's kind of like when you take your car to the mechanic and they plug it into a machine to tell you how much oxygen it's using and how much fuel it's using. We make something like that that's for software applications.
Okay, I think that's a good primer. So everybody makes software that kind of tests other software or gets information about other software. Is that accurate?
Yeah, kind of. I can show it to you if you want to see it.
Okay.
Let's say the entire screen. Share. So this is our application. I work on the browser team here, so I work on a team that injects JavaScript into our customers' web pages to tell them all about how their website is performing. So like this is actually this is monitoring one of our applications. This is actually monitoring our main application in production. So this is like everyone that comes to our site and uses this thing that you see right here as one of our customers. We're monitoring how the application performs for them. So like I can come over here and I can see all the JavaScript errors that have occurred. There's apparently just 0 that have ever occurred in my time window in the last 30 minutes, which is pretty awesome. And then you can see a whole bunch of other stuff. And like our let's see if I can get to something. The thing I've been building lately lets our users come in and you can choose one of these, and this big interaction here shows you how, for a real user, the entire web page loaded for them. So this is all their CSS getting loaded in, and then as we go along here, we'll start to see like these are web fonts loading in. Here's some images. Eventually, these are AJAX requests going out, and then eventually down here, we'll start to hopefully see the user. Yeah, so here's the user actually like moving their mouse around on the screen. They resize to the window at one point, and I can start to get all sorts of useful information out of this thing. So from a really high level, that's kind of what it does.
Okay. In our class, we're doing front-end development, so we're learning some HTML, we're learning some CSS right now. Kind of an introductory course, if you will, into web design. So I was wondering, could you explain exactly what JavaScript is and how that fits into a web page as a whole, knowing that these students have experience
sure.
on CSS?
Sure. So you guys know what HTML is, hypertext markup language, and HTML is basically like wrapping content in funny parentheses, and those parentheses have semantic meaning. Like it says, this is a paragraph tag, this is a heading, this is a big heading, this is a link. CSS styles that, so it takes that and it makes it look cool. You can also do things like animation with that. JavaScript is actually the It's the language that powers the behavior of the web application. So it says you can add an event listener. You can add a listener to something. Like you can say, oh, okay, when the user clicks on that button, I would like to perform these functions here. So it is the thing that provide. Like, how many of you use Gmail? Any of you? Right? Gmail.
School, so everybody has a Gmail account with
right on.
Domain.
So Gmail is an enormous JavaScript application. JavaScript executes in the context of your user's web browser, and it's with the initial page load, it's downloaded, and then it starts to execute in the context of the window. So like this screen that I'm in here is the window in the user's browser.
All right, Joe.
No, it's okay. Is it hard to hear me?
Yeah, I have a set of external speakers, but they're not wanting to kick in. So I'm trying to see if I can kind of brute force make it happen. So
yeah.
See if I can. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Cool. So JavaScript is it's what makes web pages interesting. So back in like, oh man, when you were all like 9 years old, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be dismissive. When you were kids, like a web page, when you went to a web page, it was a page, and that's all it did. Like it just showed you some, like you just went and you were like, oh, I'm interested in the in roller derby. I'm going to go read about the roller derby. That's all it did. But JavaScript came along with Netscape Navigator and started to make things so that you can actually like use the web browser as a way to deliver an entire application to a user. So like you can take your web browser and you can use like a word processor or a big ugly email client, or in the case of our application, you can use it to monitor other things, or you can be Amazon.com or Facebook or whatever. So JavaScript is kind of like the lingua franca of the web, meaning that like if you are writing a web application, you have to write some amount of JavaScript.
Thank you. We kind of got off to a goofy start because of our technical difficulties. So what I want to do is just have my students introduce themselves and then tell you what age they are, what year in school, just so you have a sense of who you're talking to.
Sure.
I'm Claudia, and I'm 16, and I'm a junior.
Hey, so I can't see everyone really. Like I can't see who's talking. Yeah, you were about to raise your hand, so raise your hand just so I can.
Yeah, raise your hand.
Who is Claudia? Are you in the red shirt? Hi, Claudia.
Hi.
My turn now yet?
Yeah, just wave it. Like I just can't see your mouse move or anything.
Hello, I'm Sarah, and I'm a junior.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Go on.
Hi. I'm Benya. I'm a senior.
Hello.
I'm Samantha. I'm a senior.
Hi, Samantha.
I'm Austin. I'm a senior as well.
Hi, Austin.
I'm Riddell. I'm also a senior.
I'm Casper. I'm a senior.
Hi, Casper.
I'm Greg. I'm a senior.
Greg, you're just like a white blob in the back of the class.
Matt, I'm a sophomore.
Hi, Matt.
I'm Jack, and I'm a sophomore too.
Oh, hi, Jack.
I'm Patrick, and I'm a senior.
Hi, Patrick. I'm Joe. I am graduated.
So Joe, at the beginning of this, you said that you used to teach high school. So one of the things that was a common question when I made the form for the students to fill out was, how did you get into this? And maybe we can do it in two different ways. How did you get into it, and how do most people get into coding?
So I got into it. So I always liked computers. I grew up in the 90s, and I started screwing around with computers with an Apple IIgs. Look that up sometime. And I got into Linux shortly after high school. And so like I was always just interested in what I could do with computers, and was, spent a lot of time in high school on the internet when there wasn't a whole lot to do there. Like on message boards and playing stupid role-playing games and stuff. Text-based role-playing games, not World of Warcraft. I went to college. I went to hippie school in Arizona, and I got an English degree. And I also got an education degree because you could sink a ship with the number of unpaid writers in the world. So I figured I should have something that I could at least get paid for. And I like teaching. That helps too. And so I went and I taught high school and middle school for a couple of years. My last year teaching, I was actually in Zion, Illinois, at an alternative school. So basically, working with kids who'd been court ordered to go to this school. And then the economy fell apart, which I don't know. You may know that's a thing that happened. And so at that point, I was trying to teach in Chicago, and Chicago laid off like 1,500 teachers or something, so that was not going to happen, and I had a kind of a rough year. And at that point, I was like, well, I should just teach myself web development. And so I taught myself HTML and CSS, and I got a job with an e-learning company writing instructional content for them. And they were building Flash programs, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I know Photoshop, so I could start doing some asset creation. And then before I knew it, I was animating in Flash, and if you're animating in Flash, you might as well be programming. So my first language is called ActionScript 3, which is the language that powers Flash. And it has a very similar syntax to JavaScript. And at that point, it was already clear that Flash was not a good career move. Like, I don't know how many of you actually, do any of you have, some of you have iPhones, right?
Yeah.
Do any of you have an iPhone?
Yes. Well,
Yes.
Some do. Not everybody. Some do.
Here. This thing killed Flash. Because Steve Jobs and Apple were like, yeah, this won't run Flash, and everyone wants your application to run on this. I think it's something like 45% of users on the internet are on a mobile device now. That's a side note. So I had learned Flash, and it was a terrible idea. Like, why would you do that? No one's going to pay you for that anymore. But it has a really similar syntax to JavaScript, so I took some time, I taught myself JavaScript, and I went out and got some jobs, and that's how I've sort of ended up here. So that's a long way of saying I'm self-taught. I taught myself a number of languages. One of my first ones was PHP for the server side, and then I did JavaScript. And at this point, I'm what people refer to as a polyglot. I'll write any language you ask me to. In my average day, I'll write Java, JavaScript, Ruby, Bash, a number of other things, Scala, and Go, depending on what the job is and what we need to get done. Most people, you ask. Most people, if I work in an office with about 200 other nerds here in Portland, and I would say that roughly half of them are self-taught like me, and small, like 10%, have gone through some sort of code boot camp to end up here, and then maybe the remaining 40% have some sort of computer science background. And so, like, but the interesting thing is, if you ask those people who with the computer science background, if they use their computer science degree day to day while they're writing code and doing software engineering, they will tell you that no, because a computer science degree will teach you how to write a really cool algorithm and how to solve like a brand new problem that no one's ever thought of before, and maybe we'll never actually encounter in the real world, but it won't teach you how to actually like build software systems with a group of people to accomplish a set of business goals. And that's what we really do here day to day. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, that definitely answers the question. I'm going to sneak back into the frame. So I guess one thing to ask next is that if most people in your company have not gone through a traditional, or if the majority of the people have not gone through a traditional computer science program, what would you suggest students study in college that would position them well to enter a profession where they are coding, and what can they do while they're in college to enhance their hireability?
Yeah. So I should say that I don't think that a computer science degree is a waste of time. Like, if you know, right, like if you're sitting in that room and you're like, oh, after college, I think I want to go program computers, a computer science degree is a way to do that right after school. Like, a lot of the people that are self-taught like me wandered around after college and like did other like I plowed snow for a winter because like I needed money while I was learning all this other stuff. So a computer science degree is a great way. If you're sitting there right now and you're like, I'd like to learn how to program, a computer science or computer engineering or software engineering degree, if you can find one of those, is probably a great way to do it. I think that some of the like what people refer to as soft skills, so like interpersonal communication and teamwork and the ability to think critically are pretty important. Like I have a liberal arts degree, and I think it serves me every day because a liberal arts education is mostly about how to think critically and how to dialogue with people who disagree with you, and that's like what I do. If someone gives me a problem, and me and another person think about it, we come up with solutions, and then we have to figure out which one of those solutions we're actually going to implement. I would also say that like if you're interested in working at here, which is kind of a startup, that a business degree would probably be somewhat useful because a large part of what I do is trying to figure out like which bug should I solve or which feature should I implement that will make the company the most money in the long run. And that's what you really need to be able to figure out is like, okay, well, you know, we have 500 people who pay us $500 a month who are just knocking down our door to fix this bug, but we have one customer who pays us $1 million a month that would like this new feature. We should probably build a new feature because those 500 people, while there's a lot of them and they're very noisy, they don't make us nearly as much money as the person that makes $1 million. And my math may not work out, that's all. But that's sort of the point. I think, yeah, I think in general, if you go to college, you're interested in computers, and like you build some stuff on the side, you could end up as a professional programmer. Like I do think that a college degree is probably pretty critical. The guys that I work with I won't say that, never mind.
Okay. So I guess one question is, if you do have some coding skills yourself and maybe you like to go the traditional, or not the traditional, if you prefer to go the self-taught route and get maybe a business degree or a liberal arts degree, what would you do when you're trying to break into the profession? Did you do freelance work? Did you build a portfolio and show that off? How do you get into the industry? And is there anything that these guys can start doing now to help them later on?
Yeah. So you want to see my portfolio?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not there's not much in it. I'll show it to you right now. This is my portfolio, and it may not come across the streaming very well. This is all it does. It's got a weird video background that like just does some weird video processing. It's got a link to me on Twitter. It's got a link to me on GitHub, and it has a link to the source code of the website itself. So that's stop screen sharing. So that's all I did for my, or that's all I do for my portfolio at this point. When I was starting out, I built a simpler portfolio that had a couple of applications. But like I think the thing to do as you're teaching yourself code and as you're starting to like think about getting a job in the industry is it's great to like go to Codecademy online and do a bunch of exercises, do FizzBuzz, and take like intro to computer science classes online. There's a bunch of MIT courses that you can find online, and I took a bunch of those, and those are useful. But the thing that actually taught me to code was being like, oh, I want to build a synthesizer, and so I built a synthesizer that runs in the context of the web browser, and that's 3 months at night. Like I worked my 40 hours of the day. I'd put my daughter to bed, and then I would go and go back into my office. I was working from home at the time, and just code. And it was really slow going. It was really hard, but by doing that, I actually learned all of the things that I needed to know to actually accomplish like the construction of an application that works and figuring out how to solve, like find, isolate, and fix bugs.
Okay, thank you. What is a typical day like for you as a developer in the various roles that you've had?
So I've worked at sort of 3 different tech companies. The one I started at was called Noggin Labs. It's actually there in Chicago. And at that point, I started as a content producer and a quality assurance person. So I would did a lot of writing and bug checking, like making sure the bugs got fixed and trying to find them and stuff like that. And that was basically a 9 to 5 to 8 job. That was a small sort of consultancy, basically. And when you're at a consultancy, you have these hard deadlines because you have a client. Baxter and McDonald's were 2 of our big clients there. And you contract with them and you say, okay, in 3 months, we're going to give you this piece of software. And what happens with that sort of development is as you get closer to that deadline, the amount of hours that you work go up and 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 up. So you start out working 40 hours a week. And then by the end of it, you're working 60, 70, because that deadline's approaching. You have to finish, or they're not going to pay you. And at that point, I'd come in. I'd come in at 9. I would take a half-hour lunch, and I would write code all day, and there would be some amount of meetings. And usually the client was sort of absent. You'd have 3 or 4 meetings along the life cycle of a project. And those would be very long, and everyone would sit in a room all day long, and you'd spitball a bunch of ideas, and you'd say, okay, these are things that are within the scope of the project. You're paying us this much money at the end, so we can do these things for you. And then invariably at that company, the CEO would come in at the end of the day and be like, oh yeah, here's all these other great ideas, and they're totally within scope. And they never were. They're super expensive, and that's why we would end up working 70 hours right at the end of the project. I also worked at a company here. So I worked for them for about 1.5 years, and then we decided to move to Portland, Oregon, and they were nice enough to let me work remotely, so I worked from home for a while. And when but I was working on a Chicago schedule, which would mean I was working from 7 to 3, and I'd get up in the morning, and I'd go into my office, and I'd have a status meeting in a t-shirt and my underwear, because you can only see someone from here up. And then I'd work my day, and I'd go home, and I'd be able to take my kids to the park in the afternoon, which was really cool. I liked working from home, though it had some stressful parts. After that, I worked at a company called Burnside, and Burnside Digital does what's called agile development, which is really cool. And if you get into software, try and work for a company that does agile or Scrum-based development, because it is really nice. It means you're only ever going to work 40 hours a week if they're doing it right. And it means that the customer gets exactly what they want. So agile development means that every day you have what's called a 5-minute stand-up with your meeting or with your team, and the customer is part of your team. So every day you can assign them work, and they can assign you work, and you give them they know exactly what's happening every moment of the way, so that as you get closer to the end of an agile development process, they know what is and is not possible for them to get at the end of that, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that was also I'd come in at 9, I'd write a little bit of code and sort of figure out what I was going to be doing for the day, and then around 10 we would have our stand-up, and at that point I would take on a responsibility. Okay, we need to do this particular, you need this modal to pop up and then slide out. I'm going to get that done today. And then you do that, and the next day you check in and you say, okay, either I accomplished it, here it is, it works, boom, or I was blocked because the backend developer didn't expose the proper API that I needed, so we need to work through that. Here at New Relic, I've filled a number of different roles. My favorite ones are the ones I'm doing right now. I'm doing product development. We're launching a new product in October, and I come in, I have no meetings. No one interrupts me. I come in, I don't wear these normally, I wear big headphones, so no one bothers me. I stand at my desk, and I just write code for 8 hours, and if there's something that is in my way, I go and find someone to fix it with me. And that is really ideal to me. I basically turn my hobby into my profession, so I get to come in and just write code and solve problems all day, and that's pretty cool.
That sounds very cool.
Rambling answer to you.
I think that's what we're looking for. I do want to remind the class that you can ask questions. So if you have them, just shoot your hand up, and if you don't, I'll just keep going from the question list. I think we're going to go to the next question on the list, if that's okay with you, Joe.
Yeah, that's fine. If at any point I am rambling and someone would like me to get back on track, you can ask me.
Thank you. We will. One of the questions that our students had, it came up a couple of times, had to do with compensation. Not yours specifically, but in the industry, what can somebody who writes code expect to make out of college, maybe 5 years into their career, 10, 20 years into their career? I know there's not any one answer, but maybe you can kind of talk about the different avenues in terms of like working at a startup versus a more established company, or founding your own company.
I'm not I tend to think that people should talk about what they make more often. So I make $100,000 a year. That's what New Route pays me. I do side work. I can make about $50,000 a year doing side work if I do steady work. On my side work, I charge $110 to $125 an hour. The nature of the question is like, okay, what can you expect from different sorts of companies? Is that sort of what you're asking?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So
and different stages in your career. How long did it take you to be able to have $125 per hour, billable rate?
Yeah. When I was at Noggin Labs, I was making like $35,000. At Burnside, so at a consultancy, something starting out, you can probably expect to make between, as a programmer anyway. So I was a writer there. If you love writing, go get an English degree. If you like eating, probably not an awesome idea. But as a programmer starting out, you can probably expect to make between $50,000 to $75,000, depending on the sort of company you get and the sort of compensation package they offer on top of that. Like, if you don't have great medical benefits, you're probably making more money because you're going to be paying for your medical benefits. But about 5 years in, you get to probably, if you're reasonably in demand, if you've chosen wisely in the things you write, if you haven't like pigeoned yourself into writing just Flash or just PHP, you can probably expect to be making six figures at that point. That would depend upon this company that you're working for. So I am at sort of a recovering startup. Like, we have been successful. We have over 500 employees at this point. We are sort of profitable. So I a job here in Portland, Oregon, and I'm approaching for my skill set the top of the heap right now until I sort of move up to the next level, either into management or into a lead developer role. The cost of living is a little bit lower than in Chicago. So like in Chicago, I'd probably be making a little bit more money. In San Francisco, I'd be making a boatload more money, but I would be living in 300 square feet, and I would be paying like $2,000 a month for it. But so if you're working for a startup with like 5 people, you're not going to make much money. But you have the potential to make a ton of money if the company is successful, because you'll basically own a portion of, like a significant portion of it, and you'll be able to cash that in, later on. The idea with a lot of young startups is make something that you can sell to a bigger company. So what was that? Well, Instagram's an example of that. Instagram got bought by Facebook. Those folks cashed in and left. Facebook dropped a lot of cash on them, and they wandered off. Yo app, I think. Did Yo app get bought by someone? Do you guys know about that? Yo app. It was an app that would just send the word yo to someone.
I heard about that one.
Yeah, that was stuff. Or there's another one. Facebook is just buying all of these messaging protocols right now.
Snapchat was offered, what, $4 to $5 billion?
Yeah, that was a terrible idea. They shouldn't turn that down. I don't think they're ever going to get more money for that thing. But yeah, so like at a small startup, you're probably going to make less money, but you're going to have more freedom, and you're going to be able to just to work in any part of this stack. You're probably not familiar with HTML, CSS. So when you're talking about a web application, you have a stack. So you have like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on the front end. You have a server code, maybe running Go or Ruby or PHP or whatever on the back end, talking to a database, and like so you talk about going down the stack. If you're at a startup, you can work anywhere you want, and that's really cool and that's really marketable. As you get into a company that's a little bit bigger, like New Relic, we're starting to get to a point where you're like, you just work in the front end, or you just work on the database, or you just work on the server code. But you have the potential to make a lot more money and have much better benefits. Like I choose to work here because I have 2 kids. I want to have health insurance, and I want to have a steady paycheck, and I like the job security. But I also am trying to put enough money aside so that in the future I could potentially try and be like the first engineer at a startup, so that I can take a pay cut to sort of gamble on the fact that I could make a lot of money later on.
Can you talk a little bit about the culture of the industry, maybe specifically at New Relic? What do you wear every day? Are you in a suit and tie? Are you in t-shirt and jeans, flip-flops? All right.
I'm not even wearing socks. That's the way at a lot of companies. And here, like, you might see over there.
Everybody wave.
Yeah. This is our mobile team. They build some of our mobile applications. But yeah, Portland, Oregon is particularly casual. But you get a lot of like essentially grown men and women dressing like children in an office. There are different at a company like New Relic, at sort of startups or recovering startups. But you also have like so Intel has a number of big offices here, and they go in and like sort of not ties, but like shirts with collars and khakis and stuff like that. If you go into product management or to product development, then oftentimes those folks will start to dress up. But we have a very casual office. We have all of our conference rooms. Like I'm in Castle Grayskull right now, which is a He-Man reference that I realize you probably don't get. But there's like okay, cool. There's one of our conference rooms is the Batcave, the Hall of Justice. We have the Transmogrifier. So it's all like nerd references. It's pretty casual in general.
It sounds like there's a fair amount of nerd culture that's celebrated in your industry.
Yeah, you get that, and there's like some weird side effects of that. Like, there's a lot of blog posts written about the programmers, so like these nerds who have grown up. So like you can think of like Mark Zuckerberg's not a great example of this, but like he would be like he's a nerd, and now he's really successful, and not Mark Zuckerberg in general. I don't know him at all. And then they kind of turn into these like pompous blowhards, and they just have all this money and turn into kind of jerks, which is a weird side effect that is happening in our industry, and is something that I personally am really concerned about. But that is more of like a Silicon Valley Bay Area tech scene, and I'm glad to be in Portland because we don't really have a lot of those folks running around ruining our fun.
So as you talk about Silicon Valley, Chicago, Portland, how important is your location in terms of getting a job after college, or when you want to get in the industry?
Yeah, so there's 2 schools of thought on this. I think in general, if you're starting out, being in an urban center makes a lot of sense. Like Chicago has a reasonably sized Rails development community. Of course, there's San Francisco, but there's Boston, Portland, Seattle, New York. Actually, Austin, Texas has a bunch of development shops. But like, if you're interested in doing programming and development, you probably want to be in some sort of urban setting. Once you're established, once you have your first job, basically, it doesn't matter where you are anymore. When I was at Burnside, half of our developers were remote. And I was working on a team with a guy in Turkey, a married couple in Singapore that like coded from the beach, and we just all sort of like worked with each other. As long as you're meeting your your requirements, you can be wherever you want. But I do think that starting out, you probably need to be somewhere that you can actually get a job face-to-face, because no one's going to hire you remote for your first job unless you're brilliant.
But it sounds like it's not like if you wanted to break into acting, you have to be in LA. There are a number of different places.
Yeah. So there's a lot of folks who feel that way. So that's the other school of thought. There's a lot of folks that feel that way about San Francisco. They're like, okay, I want to be a programmer, so I got to go to the Bay Area because that's where everyone is. You can do that, but and you probably get a job a little bit easier there, but the cost of living is astronomical in San Francisco right now. You're going to make a lot of money, but you're not going to be able to actually save any of it. You're going to spend it all. And you're going to be living in Oakland. You're not going to live in San Francisco itself, because the only people who can live in San Francisco anymore are millionaires and people who have been there a very long time and are in rent control. So there's a lot of people that feel that way, and like we're actually a San Francisco-based company. Although our engineering happens here, all of our sales and marketing people are in San Francisco, along with our CEO. So I get to go down there fairly often, and it's astoundingly weird being in San Francisco, because programmers walk around like they're rock stars. It's really a really weird way. Because like it's the hip thing to do in San Francisco right now is to teach yourself coding and start an Internet of Things startup.
Okay. We want to respect your time. Are we good till 1:15?
Yeah.
Okay.
11:15.
So
but yes.
11:15 your time. Standard time 1:15.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
If I get kicked out of this room, I'm just going to carry you to another room. So if I start wandering around while talking, that's what's happening.
That's fine. Thank you. Hold on, Patrick, got a question? You can ask it. You just said something.
Take a tour.
You want to tour the office?
They want a tour. Is that possible?
Yeah, you do that.
All right.
Yeah.
So, oh man, this is. So this is Castle Grayskull. I wonder if it'd be easier on my phone. Let's go over here. I'm gonna start you off with a good view first.
Joe, does this remind you of when you were in school and you did live video conferencing with people that perhaps that jobs you were interested in?
Oh yes, all the time. So this is so we have this is the Mystery Machine. Scooby-Doo reference. So one of the things New Relic has done is it's decided that we don't have any corner offices. So all of the corners of our building are common space. So like we're on the 28th floor right now of the tallest building in Portland. I live over there.
Nice house.
Thanks. Yeah. You see, we have a lot of. I don't know if you guys know much about Portland, but we have a lot of bridges over our river. But yeah, so this is one corner of our building. There's some offices just over here and over here that are like where our VPs and some of our lead engineers work.
And what happens in common spaces?
So in common spaces, we do a lot of pair programming and sort of open air meetings. What I'm at right here is called a Mediascape. So you have these wires that are coming out of here that a number of different people can all plug their laptops in, and then you have these buttons on them. So like you all share that screen basically. You can be like, oh hey guys, look at what I have, and you press the button and your thing goes up there. So like 6 people can sit here and pair program together. Then we have a lot of our walls are also actually whiteboards, because we do a lot of like drawing up our ideas together.
Orange, is that orange or red?
That was orange.
Orange whiteboard, got
it. Yeah. Over here we have people who are developing a product we call Insights. And this is Bob. Hi, Bob. The high school class. So they're building one of our newer products called Insights, and then we also have a team here that builds our .NET agent. This is where we have our bike parking. Portland is one of the most bikeful cities in the nation, so we have a lot of bikes. And then over here used to be our lunchroom area, but now we've put in 3 new conference rooms. Here's the Batcave. This is one of our biggest conference rooms. You can get about 20 people in there, so you could have like an entire like product development, a large product development team in there working together. So out here we have like the group of engineers that builds our Rails application. So these are the people that build the actual like thing that you come to as a customer to see how your application is performing. And then over here we have more common space. There's some nice couches you could work on if you wanted to, and another media escape here. As we start to go this way, you get to the, we have our design team, and then you have a number of teams that are like the people that actually specialize on building the code that our customers deploy into their application. So like you have this team over here on our right is they're Ruby developers, and they actually build a little thing that our customers deploy onto their servers. Over here are people who write PHP and do some Linux monitoring. Over here are the we were looking at earlier, and then my team sits in here with the Node developers, and we do browse monitoring. That thing there, I don't know if you can see it, that sort of thing. That's my standing desk. That's where I work. And then these are the people who build our Java agent. Funny fact, one of the guys that was just sitting in that cube is the guy who invented the wiki. So the thing that Wikipedia is built on, a publicly editable document that tracks the state of its edits, Ward built that. He is brilliant, and I get to work with him every day. And then we can go up here. This is the up to the 29th floor.
Like, yeah,
Hey, Darren.
it's not a matter of playing nicely. It's just one's going to work and the other's not going to work.
These desks we're still sort of filling in, but this is our alerting team. And then over here we have what we call site engineering and data services. Giving a high school class a tour of our office. So these are the folks. This is Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Brian
Hi,
worked.
Brian. Hi.
They're all yelling hi in my ears. They built. You worked on one of the first Macs, right? Yes. So Brian worked on on that one right there. So Brian worked on one of the teams that developed this. It does. I think this one still worked in Vanessa.
Compatibility is very important to develop.
Brian says backwards compatibility is very important.
So Joe, did he work with Steve Jobs?
Yeah, he knew Steve Jobs.
Once.
He actually, for a while, he tells a story. He had, it was called the Lisa, was one of the first Mac prototypes, and he had Steve Jobs' Lisa for a long time after Steve passed away, gave back to his family. So up here, we're starting to get into like the support folks. These people field problems from our customers and get them to the right people to get them fixed. Have support teams that are dedicated to different languages. Over here is one of my favorite spots in the building. We're in our office. We have these cool hanging egg chairs you can use. You can sit in them and program, which is kind of fun.
Beautiful.
And then we have sort of a training classroom in here to train our salespeople if we need to, or do interviews. We have more bike parking over this way. I'm hurrying because I have. So we have more bike parking here on the 29th floor, and then this is our lunchroom. And this is, we all eat at the company, which is a great way to exchange ideas. We all take an hour every day, and we sit in this big common space. And it's a lot of fun. There's lots of soda and snacks and coffee and everything that you need to be a successful and happy software engineer.
Is that all complimentary part of the job? You get free snacks and sodas?
Yeah. Which is why we all have to bike everywhere because otherwise we'll be fat. Let me plug back in here. So then we're currently also in the middle of getting a fifth floor, or a third floor on the fifth floor, because we are growing too fast and we are outgrowing the space that we currently have. I found a charger. You guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's the tour.
All right. Do you guys have any questions? I'll ask one last one. All right. The question from Matt is, how long have you been working at New Relic?
I've been here just over a year.
I'm sorry, one more time?
I've been here just over a year.
Okay. The last question that I think I'd be curious to know is, how much on-the-job learning do you do, and I guess what qualities does a successful programmer have?
I do, I should sit here and talk, just people trying to work. I do sort of constant on-the-job learning, because any day I will be able to like learn a new technology or solve a problem I've never had to think about before. And to do that, I have to be able to just on the fly pick something up and learn it. What was the other part of your question was what sort of skills?
Skills or qualities make for somebody that's going to be successful in this line of work?
I think the sorts of skills that you need are the ability to like. Man, everyone is doing complicated. The thing that you really need is the ability to solve problems on the fly, and the need to learn new technologies as they come to you. Like, there's this blog post a while back about the idea of a programmer as a.
I think we might have
constantly.
lost.
Oh no! I'm back! I'm back! I'm back! Here I am.
We have you. We have you back. Do you have us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me
Okay.
again?
We lost the past 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. So there's this idea of programmers as like the professional amateur, like someone who is constantly learning something brand new. So I think that's a willingness to be uncomfortable with what you're asked to do. That's probably pretty important. The other part of it is working with the team. Because while I talk about like just writing code all day, I don't actually do it alone. I do it as a team, and so I have to I have to know when I don't know something, go ask for help. Like you have to get over your ego and be willing to go be like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Could you show me what I basically need to figure out? And part of that is also not being too attached to your own ideas. Like, oftentimes there will be two competing ideas, and you have to figure out which one is real without your ego. Like, just because it's your idea doesn't mean it's the right idea, and that is super important to what we do. Yeah.
All right. Well, are there any other questions from our group? Do you have any questions for our group?
What's the weather like in? You're in Glenview?
Yeah, we're in Glenview, Glenbrook South High School.
Glenview, right on. Yeah. How is Glenview today? I do sometimes miss Chicago.
It's like weird.
It's
cold and
sunny, sunny, but a little. There's a brisk nip in the air, but overall a nice, pleasant day.
Pretty much.
So I think we would all like to say thank you, Joe, for giving up an hour of your time. I know that I'm sure you are busy. It sounds like you have a lot going on every day. We truly appreciate you making the time for us.
Sure.
And let's all say thank you on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you!
Okay, now let's all say you're welcome on 3. 1, 2, 3. You're welcome! Oh. Yeah, thanks everyone. This was fun.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
Bye, Mr. McFadden.
Bye bye. All right.
Wow.